I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Abstract Essay, where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest, one of his advocacy of making the dreams a reality and helping people do the same. And of course, an author too, none other than Mr. Kenneth Wyche.
Hello.
Welcome, Mr. Kenneth on Abstract Essay. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Sure, Daniel. Thank you for having me. You hit the nail on the head. My book, Get Your Mind Right, it's a psychology self-help book. Um, uh, I also run Life with Ken, which is a lifestyle brand that focuses on helping people live more confidently. Um, I create content regularly, whether it be articles, videos, or courses, and just really try to provide resources that help people get the fullness of life and get to experience what that's like. And I use practical, scientific explanations and examples to illustrate what it looks like. But my inspiration and goal and hope is to help people experience the fullness of their self and be better people and have the joy of fullness of life and what that could potentially mean and be for them.
Be better. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Kenneth. And today let's talk about mental health. So tell us what we often frame mental health around. Sorry.
They're good.
Take two. We often frame mental health around disorders. How can we shift the public conversation to include proactive mental fitness?
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think mental health or yeah, your mental wellness can be stigmatized to be isolated with respect to some type of illness, some type of um, issue that can be uh, what's the word diagnosed and clinicalized, so to speak. So we definitely have that experience with mental health, but mental health is like any other kind of health. Yes, there are situations and circumstances where things can just be intrinsically unfortunate. Maybe somebody was born with some type of illness or something like that. But just like your body, your physical needs, your taking care of whatever other responsibilities you have before you go see a specialist, before you end up having to speak with someone to fix a problem. There should be some type of, for someone who is operating at a general baseline of humanity, there should be some kind of maintenance of that experience. You should be able to take care of yourself and tend to your psyche enough to get through what are your normal responsibilities. And so, proactive psychology, which I like how you put that, is would be touching on or would be speaking to that process of how do I stay aware and stay fit and stay able in my regular life and or on a regular basis before or with the purpose of avoiding having some type of unhealthy break or something that could require additional help.
Mr. Kenneth, how do you see the most persistent and surprising pockets of stigma around mental health today, even among people who consider themselves progressive or enlightened?
Well, so I think there one of the good things about mental health today is that we're talking about it more. And there's more access and more resources available. You can speak to an online counselor, which is very good. We have certain other hotlines that are available as well for people who are in various types of needs. Um, so I think that there is some good coming from us being able to talk about it more as a society and as humanity and people. That's always been, it's very cultural specific. So like in America we are becoming more inclined to have conversations around mental health. That, I think that also comes from the psychology community and the practitioner community within the mental health space being intentional about pushing the importance and validating the work that is done in the mental health space. And so, between it being advocated for and us now coming to a place where it's okay to have these conversations, and there are other more types of resources available, I am happy to see that growth and trajectory. Again, if someone has some type of um, particularly serious mental health concern that talk therapy may not be fully getting at, um, yeah, and or related issues, people should certainly see professionals. But I'm also glad that we are okay and are at a place in certain respects culturally to have conversations about um, what we're feeling, what we're experiencing, and how we can get through some of that. Because the other aspect is when we're not talking about mental health, these things are still going on. And so we can potentially find some healing in community by having these conversations of, oh, I was feeling like such and such, and then someone else can say, oh, I felt that way before, and here's what happened. And so that is a way of bringing us closer together too, without having to um, seek additional help. Not saying that one shouldn't, but before you get there, we have grown in society in such a way where we can hit and have different types of conversations at different levels with respect to being mentally healthy and mentally well. And so, yeah, I think that we've been having really good and dynamic conversations about it so far. And so I'm happy to see the trajectory that we're going on. What I will say, though, is one concern that we might continue to see is how mental health and people's psychology change over time with respect to new and developing technologies currently right now with artificial intelligence, and what that may look like down the line and in the future.
How does the language of fighting a battle, of being broken versus navigating challenge or healing impact a person's actually journey with their mental health?
Can you rephrase that?
So, how do we fight the battle for being a broken while we navigating the journey of mental health?
Sure. Yeah. So I think when you're in the midst of whatever it is you're experiencing and going through, knowing what resources you have available to you is very important. And then also knowing what is helpful and what isn't helpful is very important as well. And so sometimes that those are subjective experiences in terms of what those things are, those helpful things and unhelpful things are. And so when you're going through, or when you're in the midst of something that is debilitating in some capacity, um, working through what is in front of you is a good way to start chipping away and seeing progress. Okay, what would you like to be accomplishing? What is keeping you from accomplishing what you want to accomplish? Let's start there. And so people can work through that, through things, through that process, to achieve some clarity. And then also during that process, when you're going through too, you can have internal conversations and dialogues about what really matters to you. You're also learning lessons from the experiences, or hopefully, you're learning lessons from the experiences you're going through. And as you learn lessons from what you go through, you can reconsider some of your thought processes and ideologies, and you can grow and have a transformed or renewal of mind with new information. So there are things that can happen along the way that will help you progress. But one of the first things you can do when you're going through is find the fortitude and strength to continue to chip away at something until you start to see a breakthrough or start to see some type of progress.
A breakthrough indeed, for sure. So, Mr. Kenneth, why is still so difficult for us fully accept that mental health is just as psychological and real as a broken arm or a diabetes, and what helps bridge the gap in understanding?
Well, I think with some of with the examples that you just gave, one of the differences is you can see those things. Those things have more tangible effects. Like if someone's unwell in some other way, it probably is visible or is denotated somehow with respect to some type of physical experience or some type of measurable experience. Um, your mental health isn't really tangible in that way, and then also it is connected to your society, your environment, what you've grown up around, how you currently are living, is connected to socioeconomic resources and status. So even the concept and idea of what mental health is, it can be too difficult to pinpoint for the purpose of um, engaging or interacting with it with a certain level of tactfulness. So I think that that's one of the issues people have. And so then when somebody like flips out, goes postal, or jumps off the cliff metaphorically, or crashes out, or whatever, has a psychotic break, whatever that context is within the spectrum of all those adjectives that I just gave. Um, Whatever's going on in that experience, then all of a sudden people care and are concerned. But again, before it got there, unless someone was born with some type of disorder, before it got there, there were probably a few other steps or some signs along the way that said that this person may not be doing well, and we should be uh, attentive to that in some way, just for the good of society. So again, I think that we are now getting to a place where we are being more open in society to have this kind of conversation. But yeah, that is one of the struggles. I don't see that you're not feeling well. Yeah, maybe you're someone is melancholy, or they have a flattened affect, their spirits are low, they're not being their normal self. But everyone has a bad day, and that's another thing. We generalize, or we tend to hyper focus on generalized experiences, but again, that's because we don't talk about these things. I've had a bad day before. I'm sure you may have had a bad day before, Daniel. And it's just one of those things that sometimes the best thing you can do is communicate that before you try to institutionalize that. And there are steps in between one extreme to the other. But again, just being able to resonate and be in the in between, and intentional with respect to, okay, how can we find some sort of equilibrium in our thinking and in our existence and in our self concept, so forth and the like.
Very well said, Mr. Kenneth. And how about if someone could only commit to one 5 minute daily practice to build a mental resilience? What would you recommend and why?
Deep breathing, it is really easy. You can do it whenever you feel the need to do it. So whenever you have a moment before, and you can do it by yourself, and it's one of the it's a low entry kind of practice where there are other things that you can do facilitated, or you can learn more about certain other skills and techniques. But just taking a moment and taking a deep breath can actually, benefit your physiology, lower your tensions and emotions, help you think clearly, and help you, take a moment to get your thoughts together. So there's a lot of value um, for your body and for your mind when you can step out of a situation for a moment and just in through your nose, out through your mouth. Sometimes you may want to, take a seat, close your eyes, do a few deep breaths, whatever that looks like. But in the process of taking that moment to just experience clarity, hopefully that will allow for you to go back to a situation or even step into something that is different from when you initially exited it, and come to the table or be able to communicate in a way that is more fruitful than what may have otherwise been the case had you not taken some time to gather yourself.
To gather with yourself, people, take a deep breath. And exhale and inhale. And Mr. Kenneth, in the age of constant simulation and comparison, what are the rules for a healthy digital diet that protects our mental well being?
Get off social media for the most part. I think even like some social media platforms are at this point telling us like, hey, we're not good for you, but you can use this if you want to. It's like, um when you're on like Instagram or Facebook or whatever you use, sometimes you may be uh enticed to fall into the trap of comparison. And so, yeah, like it's just factually not good for people's mental health. And it can potentially create mental health problems. So that is one thing for sure. Now, not everybody has a bad experience with it. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be engaging. I'm on. I'm not on all social medias, but I do have platforms that I like. So there's nothing wrong with using social media, but it's just one of those, again, easy entry um, examples of this is definitely not potentially good for you in the technology age that we're currently in. Another thing, again, talking about as tech is advancing, um, people should be considerate with how they use different resources. Anything misused can be a weapon. And so, how do you use things for their intended purposes? I know, like with chatbots, it concerns me because sometimes I see stories about how people talk to certain chatbots or AI models and have intimate conversations about their mental health. And then they are inclined or enticed to act in a way that doesn't allow them to seek additional or human or even contextually more proper help. So, those are some things. Use resources for what they are created to be used for, and don't use things that don't elicit good or healthy emotions or doesn't make you feel good from using whatever it is you are using. So just be mindful of your exposure to things.
Be mindful, people. And what are the evidence based modalities that people might not know about, and how do they work differently from traditional talk therapy?
Um, well, so I'm trained and skilled in CBT or cognitive based therapy, and that is the most common form of talk therapy where you are connecting with someone with respect to a particular issue, and that issue is potentially being diagnosed or addressed throughout various sessions with a therapist. And so that's what I'm trained in. And I know there are other approaches to how people may conduct talk therapy. And so a lot of it is just school of thought. What is it that you subscribe to, or what strain of psychology do you want to further explore and develop? From that perspective, I've been hyper focused on concepts and ideas around self actualization. And so that is a common and practical objective experience for most species or living organisms. In psychology, whether you're taking it from a Carl Jung perspective or a Carl Rogers perspective, or one of the other initial thinkers around the subject, um, it talks about there are ways for the theory itself, or some of the ideas around the theory talk about the ways in which people can experience self-actualization or the fullness of themselves in real time. And so some of the different approaches that looks like in terms of walking out a psychological practice, or having some of those principled approaches that we're talking about, is through exposure, is through putting yourself in positions where you're walking out different types of experiences, being open to new experiences, but also being attentive and in tune to your biological needs. And so I think that one of the strengths and what I've been doing has been illuminating information and illuminating light on what that experiences is like in terms of experiencing self actualization. Um, but then again, like I said, I'm more focused on talk therapy, but I do know that there are, people that might be more inclined with some of the neurological aspects of the chemical imbalances that might take place when people are feeling a certain thing. So all of that to say, with respect to some of the more um, proven approaches with this, it depends on the capacity with which you're teaching or educating someone who wants to learn or be impacted by different psychological principles. So if someone is in a place where they have something that's more symptomatic, then talk therapy and some of the more traditional approaches around talk therapy will benefit them. If someone is looking to experience something transcendent, then maybe they will look for a more coaching style or approach to psychology. And then from there, you're really taking into consideration practitioners. Of course, if someone has a severe mental health or severe mental illness situation, you would then seek out a psychiatrist or an MD, someone who can really treat a particular diagnosis. So I think that as the field broadens and as we consider how we can be more helpful, the discipline will be inclined to be, yes, more specialized, but also more expansive to reach different specializations.
Very well said, Mr. Kenneth. Truly, truly empowering answer. How does one person commitment to their own mental health positively impact their family, workplace, and community?
Great question. I think like that's one of the uh, motivating factors for me when it comes to doing stuff like this and talking about psychology and mental health, because when you get better, the people around you get better. They just have to get better, because the you or whatever that catalyst is that is working on their mental health, that is working on their mental wellness, that person is the catalyst for change. And when something changes, everything around it changes, because people, places, and things have to relate differently or back and forth to and with what is changing. So it's very important. You might even be able to demonstrate what healthiness looks like. Maybe someone is the first person in their family or their friend group to try something different or to break free from some type of addiction or some type of proclivity that they don't want to do or didn't enjoy doing, but they've done the work to improve themselves and get better. In that experience, you could bring people along the way. You can show or pave a path or show that there is something possible for people outside of what they may be used to. So when you get your mental health better, your influence infiltrates and reverberates other people's lives and gives them an opportunity to make a decision about how they want to see their life continue to go in the direction that they want to go
And how about what are the unique challenges and societal pressures that men face in acknowledging and addressing their mental health? And how can we create safer spaces for them?
You said specifically for men?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Well, so unfortunately, young men, not all of them, but there are certainly some and a notable portion of them who do feel um, disenfranchised to a certain respect or disconnected with at least here in America, um, they feel disconnected with society in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And this could be a trend that is spreading and will probably continue to spread. Like, we have to think about when it comes to if since we're isolating gender, we should think about what matters to each gender. And again, there is some subjectivity to that because what has mattered to a man and what has mattered to a woman has changed over time as history has progressed. As time has marched forward, things have changed. And so again, when we're addressing mental health, let's talk about or identify what the change is, and then let's connect how we can get young men in particular to adapt to that change. So part of it is just being able to adapt into a new environment and demonstrate a certain level of capacity to survive and evolve. So that is just part of it, I feel. But then the other part of it is um, men can sometimes, even though I think that there is a a general valuing of men. I think men are generally valued, but I do think that because we naturally aren't inclined to develop a certain type of community amongst ourselves. Yes, there are brotherhoods and things like that, but even in those contexts where you are connected with other guys, you may not have the depth of communication and relationship that women are known to have in their social groups. So part of it is understanding how men interact with understanding the importance of community, understanding how men interact with one another, and then speaking to and addressing how can you adapt to some of the changing um, factors in your society and in your environment. And what we do know through development and psychology around personality development, what we do know are some of the benchmarks that identify identity development. And that's another aspect of psychology that I'm interested in. And so when you think about what makes a man even feel like they're a man, even know that they are a man or identify with that schema and place of existence, we can talk about that and unpack what some of those values are. We know culturally what it means, which might be easier to um, apply more broadly and across more people. So like when we're talking about manhood culturally, we're talking about, a good physique, we're talking about someone who's a provider, we're talking about someone who is a protector and operates with a certain type of value and a certain type of gentlemanness. Um, is that, or how do we communicate and translate that message to men today? Is that message still relevant to men today? Is that something that they still want to pursue and accomplish? And then the other part is we do need to talk about how men are connecting with their fair sex. Like this is a world where there are men and there are women, and one of the other things that may not go spoken within the community of men or amongst men is how they, relate to women, or what that experience is like for them in terms of getting to know the opposite sex as well, and find themselves through that process. So it's multifaceted. It's not one particular thing. I do think that because it's multifaceted, you end up having men gravitate towards certain figures who are good at um, uh, identifying an issue, hyper focusing on that issue, kind of in some of the ways that other strong men, manipulated their followers throughout history. You have people who are adept in that talent and skill, and men draw to that kind of leadership and that symbol of strength. But I think that there is something that can be done that is more appealing and more broad based and more societally uplifting about the kind of men a society wants, and the kind of man a man in that society wants to be, and how we can bridge that gap and make that connection, that isn't so influenced by outside factors that are really more concerned about profit and are disinterested with or disconnected with the value of manliness as a whole. So that it's multifaceted, but I think that that is kind of where I would see uh, that issue being most effectively addressed. How do we get manhood to resonate with men, and men to resonate with manhood in whatever capacity that looks like in their circumstance and in their condition and in their environment?
Mr. Kenneth, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please to listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast law 101 and mental health 101. Love Letters in the third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Kenneth, for someone listening or watching right now who is in the thick of it right now, what is one thing you want them to know or hold on to?
Yeah, so something for someone. You said they're in what kind of situation? What's their context? They're not
They
mentally
are
well.
they are not well on their mental health awareness.
Yeah. I would say first thing is like take a step back. Um if you're inclined to write out your ideas. Um just have some way to think through whatever it is you're going through. After you take a moment to think through whatever it is you're going through, um, identify ways and opportunities that you're comfortable with in terms of seeking help. I think that's another barrier to entry. Another barrier to entry with when it comes to mental health is, where do people find allies? Where do people find individuals that they know are going to support and encourage them? And these ideally would be people that are closer to these individuals who are struggling and going through. Yes, there are national resources, and you can see a practitioner, and you should definitely be able to take advantage of those opportunities or pursue those things if that's something that you feel that you need. But for some other people, maybe they would like to talk to a parent. Maybe they would like to have a conversation with a trusted advisor. Maybe they would like to have a conversation or talk about what they're going through with someone who is proximately closer to them. And I think that finding or identifying if you have someone like that in your life where you can have a conversation, and that person, if they can't or aren't willing to walk through what you're going through with you, they are willing to give you resources and direct you to people, places, and things that can walk through what you're going through with you. Um, then I think that you're off to a great start. But don't just fly off the rails just off of your first thought or your first initial impressions of something you're going through. Take a beat, write it down if you have to, and then go speak to somebody, whether it be a professional or whether it be someone you trust.
Mr. Kenneth Wise, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your books, your advocacy, or what are projects that you're doing right now?
Sure. Yes, please buy my book, Get Your Mind Right. It's a self help book, which has psychology principles, which we've talked about in this show. But there's also things on economics and other things as well that will be captivating and interesting to you. Also, visit my website, lifewithkin.com, where you can find additional resources, and you can connect with me on X, or formerly Twitter, at underscore Kintastic underscore. Thanks.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Kenneth Wise because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering books to come, more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Mr. Kenneth, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.